Yes, good afternoon and welcome again. This is Men, Family, and Education Under Fire. We're on the Go Radio, powering the voice of community and change. And this is your host, Dr. Horace Williams. First of all, I'd like to say good afternoon to everybody. Pleasure to have you listening again this afternoon. Today's topic, we're going to talk about some educational components. The title of the show today is called Preparing Our Children to Return to School. Now, some people are out there probably thinking, well, why are we talking about that in early August? Because we are in the planning stage. But before I start my show, I always like to use or say this disclaimer. We are not placing blame, but we're taking more responsibility. So for my listeners, I want us to get in this mode. For all those parents or guardians who have young ones going back to school in September, we know that September is right around the corner, so we don't want to wait to the last minute. Part of our show's goal and objective is to educate the listeners on 3 specific topics. We call it men, family, and education. So this is an education topic today. So we want to help the parents that are accustomed to their students finishing up in June, maybe going to summer school or taking the summer off, or maybe even going to academic enrichment camp, or even going to summer school to make up grades that the children have failed during the regular year. But what we want to do now is we want to get your mindset on, again, this is targeted at making our children smarter than what they are. And I'm going to be honest with you, working in the education arena in the public schools, I think our children are much smarter than it appears to on tests and the state exams and what they're currently showing. But it's a twofold thing. It's just not only up to the school, but it's up to the parents. So again, today we're not placing blame, we're just taking more responsibility. So I want to speak directly to that. Preparing our children to go back to school, because I want you to think about your child as being a very, very valuable commodity. So education is a part of that commodity. So let me ask some questions. Let's start off. School starts from the home door to the school door. Now, we know that the schools are responsible for certain things as it relates to educating our children, as it relates to exposing them to academic excellence, exposing them to safe learning environments, which is conducive for learning. But let's talk about today, we want to focus on preparing them to be received in that environment, parents specifically. So I'm going to ask a couple questions. What was your student doing this summer? Okay, I heard some people, what do you mean? Was your student in summer school this year? Did your student have to make up classes? Did you send your student to summer camp? Did you send your student to an academic camp, something educational? Well, I think summer is fun. It's a good time. You know, as a kid, I used to love summers. I love my summers. But what I found out that the same time that I was out having fun from June to August, smart kids were in camps. They were doing academic enrichment programs. So they stayed on the grind during the summer. So by the time they got back to school, they hadn't lost a step. And then I also noticed about myself that when I got back to school, I always needed some review or makeup. So parents, we got to be aware of that. And this is what we're going to talk about a little bit today. So when I ask these questions, what have your student done educationally this summer? Be it summer school, a camp, academic enrichment program. We need to always with our students, especially from the 5th through the 8th grade, we need to always have our children doing something educationally in their off time. Parents, it's a part of your job to make sure that your children are participating educationally somewhere. Now, you have to figure out some things, parents. You need to know a few things about your children. Number one, did they fail any classes? And be honest about it. Don't hold back. Oh, he's so cute. She's so cute. She'll be all right. Nope. If they failed any classes, did they make them up this summer? And if they didn't fail any classes, did I send them to an academic camp this year? Did I send them to an enrichment program? And it doesn't always have to cost money, parents, by the way. There's some good programs around the city that is very conducive for our children's learning and keeping them academically in touch during the summer. So now, if you sent your kid to summer school, question one, did they pass summer school? And do you have the proof? The proof is the report card. Don't let them. Now, if they were in high school, now high school children are a little tricky, parents. They start learning a lot of deceptive ways when they enter high school on how to say, oh, they didn't pass out report cards yet. Oh, they're going to do that next week. Oh, they say I can make that up and I can pass. Parents, I'm going to tell you this. I was the type of parents, I raised 4 children. I would always allow my children to answer the questions that was asked by me just to see, how truthful that they were going to be. But I was always going to do follow-up. Parents, get used to doing follow-up. Follow-up is very important in the student's education. So now, summer school, did you see the grades? Are the grades out yet? Did you talk to the teachers during the summer school? Did you check up on your students in 1 or 2 weeks? Now, summer school is normally a little lax than regular school. It's a little more at ease, so to say. But the goal is to pass and learn something during that time. Now, a lot of kids take summer school for granted. They show up because they say, well, it ain't nothing going on. I'm just got to be here. No, they need to take that opportunity to value education. Parents, have you checked up on that? If you haven't, I'm going to recommend that you check up on and follow up to see if your child passed summer school. Academic enrichment programs. If you sent your child to an academic enrichment program, it could still be going on. If not, if it's ended, parents, you need to ask yourself, what did my child learn? Did they come home every day smiling, talking about the program, talking about the leaders in the program? Will it be the supervisors, the instructors, the teachers, the staff? Did they have good things to say? And could you visibly or verbally hear them tell you something that they didn't know prior to this experience? It's very important, parents, that we follow up with our children when we send them to these programs to see if they were working, right? To see if the programs had any validity to them. You sent them there for a reason in the first place. Sometimes people send their children to these camps for babysitting services. Don't get angry at me when I say it. Not everybody, but some people do. And some send them there actually to learn some things and give them some additional experiences. How about any kind of enrichment or academic boot camp where they study skills such as ACT, SAT, test-taking skills, formal test-taking skills? Did they benefit from that? Now, you ask me, so why are we talking about this? Because, again, our children are much more capable of learning than we give them credit for. I have seen and witnessed too many inner city students not reaching their full potential. And when I talk to some of them and I ask them, well, why didn't you care? Well, nobody really pushed me. Not saying that that's an excuse, but it's a shame when we are in an academic environment and a student tells me they've been to school and they show up and nobody's pushed them to learn. I disagree with that. Now, so after you ask those questions this summer, if your kids didn't go to a summer enrichment, a boot camp, or some type of educational environment, did they do any reading this summer? Have you listened to your students do any reading? Did they take care of the summer packet? Some educators out there, what you know about the summer packet? Most schools have a summer packet where they require students that is not attending school to do additional things in the summer to help them prepare for the fall. For instance, they assign readings. Were your student or your child assigned any readings? And if he or she was, did they do the readings? Now, a lot of teachers say, well, I don't even know why we give the summer packages because the students don't do anything. They put it to the side. But parents, this is where you come in. You need to understand and know that if your child is assigned a summer packet for school, there's a reason. You need to follow up on that. Key word is follow up, because your student is preparing to go to school in September. And I'm not saying it has to be heavy duty, but parents, these are things that we want to keep our students in time with as it relates to education. Now, next question. I'm going to say, parents, we know that school's starting in September. We know that there's a lot of things on your plate maybe, but don't wait till the last minute to do the following things. Number one, is your child properly enrolled in the school that you intend for them to attend? I'll say that again because it sounds like a tongue twister. Is your student or child enrolled in the proper school that you intend for them to attend? Don't wait till the last minute. A lot of times, parents, we wait till the last minute and things happen. Understand, if your child is moving from middle school to high school, they still, in some cases, have to go and register. Don't wait till the last minute. Find this information out far in advance as to where your child should be attending school, or if you're looking to change schools. A lot of families are changing schools right now. This is even more important. As you change schools, what you want to do is make sure that you get a chance to meet the principal. Make sure that you understand the goals and objectives of this school. Make sure you understand if this school is on some type of curriculum pathway, and that's a different conversation. Some schools now are set up with a theme or a direction as it relates to its curriculum being taught. Say you may go to a school that wants to be technology driven. So the pathway would be some type of technology incentive or naming of the school. Parents, you need to understand that. If you're sending your kid to this type of school and they don't have any inkling or desire to be in a technical environment, you need to reconsider that school. So these things that we need to work out prior to September, we need to be thinking about this now. Now, parents, if you had a chance to meet the principal, and I know I'm talking, preaching to the choir to some folks, they saying, oh, I've done it already. Well, okay, if it don't apply, let it fly. That means if it doesn't apply to you, just listen in and maybe pass it along to somebody else that it can help, right? So now, parents, if you have done some of those things that I just mentioned, have you got a chance to meet the principal? Stop in and meet the principal of your new school, of your old school, especially if you have a new principal. Parents, it's your job to stop in and meet the principal, because that's the person or individual, one of them, that you are going to have a partnership with as it relates to educating your child. Don't take this relationship for granted. And I'm not saying to some of those parents, I know we got some parents, they hot heads, they want to go in there and blah, 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 and be mad for no other reason, apparent reason. Give the individual a chance, get to know them. Then talk about the goals and objectives of the school. If you can, get to know some of the teachers. Get to understand some of their qualifications. Give them some example of your child's learning abilities, or in some cases, learning disabilities. Ask them some questions related to how do they manage their class. You can ask them where they graduated from. Ask them what kind of certification do they have. What qualifies them to be a teacher, or what qualifies them to teach your child? These are all good questions, parents. We have to be ready, and we have to become familiar with these type of questioning, because, again, we're talking about our young people as our gold mines. They are young gold mines. You got to treat them like such. They're investments. Next thing, when you've done all that, Ask yourself this question. Once you get all this information, ask the principal about graduation data. How is the kids doing in this school? What are some of their strong points? What are some of their weaknesses? Parents, we must become vigilant when it comes to our children and their education. We have to ask the right questions. Get used to it. I want you to know that you're, as the parent or the guardian, you are similar to, you're the lawyer. You're your children's lawyer. You have to speak up for them. But parents, we have to become more equipped with the proper tools so when we go into the educational setting, we'll be able to communicate effectively our needs and our wants to those individuals that we trust our children to. Now, let me say this. Again, for those of you who may have joined me late, this is just not all on the school, okay? A lot of folks like to blame a lot of things on the school. Oh, the school didn't do this. The school didn't do that. But I used to like to say, so parents, we make sure we do what we're supposed to do first. What did you do? Were your child ready and prepared for school? Did you talk to your child about his or her behavior in a public setting? And we just use a public setting because it doesn't matter at school. There should be proper behavior in certain settings. Did you have a conversation with your child about valuing his or her education? Parents, I'm going to give you a little tip. Right now, being smart, having your child perform high academically, that's the new currency. That's the new currency. Being smart is the new currency. We want to train our young people to be as intelligent as they can. Going to school is just part of it. So we want the parents, we want the guardians, we want folks to talk school up, right? We want school to be a pleasant place. We want your child to come home and tell you about school, and you need to be so enthusiastic listening that you encourage them to finish. That's every grade. Now, some of the things that we have to look forward to when school starts, and we have to get on right away, we got to make sure that the school that we're sending our children to fits the type of child that we know we have at home. So what do I mean by that? And I'm just going to use this. Say, for instance, if your child is a special needs student, do not send your child to a school that do not have the accommodations for that special needs. You're fooling yourself. Again, if you have a special needs student, be mindful of the school that you send your child to because they may not have the accommodations. So what do you mean by accommodations? Say your child have an IEP and they have a physical. They need a physical accommodation. May require they come in a wheelchair, may require a ramp or a parapro to push them around. You need to ask that question, mom, dad, guardian, before September school dates start. Ask that question. It's a lot of things that you can do to prepare your child or your student to have a great year in school. And so we're going to just touch on some of them. So see if your child needs can be met at this school. Again, so talk about accommodations, talk about testings, and then ask about how long have some of the teachers been there. That's very important. That'll tell you something about the culture and climate of the school. If you got high turnover at a school, that could be a problem. Talk about it. Ask them to be honest. And then if you find out if your child, especially if the teacher is in one of the grade levels that your child is in, go and ask to speak to that teacher. Be open and honest about it. But parents, we want you to become more of a participant in your students' education. And I'm not saying that you're not. Some people are, what are you talking about? I'm just saying more of a participant. It's more than, I know that you're feeding them, you're clothing them. And I know that you backpack and make lunches. But now we're getting into the crux of what we need to do to make them more astute during class. So what we want to do, parents, we want to be mindful of all these tips and techniques. And parents, I want you to be especially mindful of your client. I'm talking about your student. I said earlier, in some cases, I compare parents to lawyers because parents have to go and speak up for their children. But you need to have the right information. You need to have the right approach. You have to have the right mindset. So a couple of things that I also want to mention while we're talking about this. And again, I talked to some parents. I talked to some folks before. I am publishing a book. It's called 12 Simple Things Parents Must Know and Understand About Public School Education. It's going to be a parent guide to help improve students educationally and their academic success. And a lot of times, the reason I wrote this book, and by the way, the book is going through is the auditing process now. I was hoping to have it out before September, but I'm going through the auditing process. Matter of fact, here's my manuscript right here for those who wants to see it. And if you can't, that's okay. But the book is coming out. It's a great book, I think. I wrote the book because I spoke with at parent-teacher conferences. I spoke with, and I do workshops with parent groups, and it's a lot of information that parents don't know. So I wrote the book. But what I want to say to parents is this. You have an obligation to stick with your children through this time. They will turn out as well as you prepare them. I have 4 children. They're all adults right now, and I'm proud of them. I talk to them now as adults, and they've graduated college, and they're working, and I'm just proud as can be. But I look back as a parent, I said, wow, there's no book on this. I just, believed that education was the way to go. So that's what I led my children. But parents, I'm here to help you through this so you don't have to go and do all the research that I had to do to complete this book. So it's a couple things that I want to tell parents as we get ready to close at the end of the show. And again, just for those, if you're joining us late in the program, this is Men, Family, and Education Under Fire. I'm your host, Dr. Horace Williams. We're on the Go Radio, powering the voice of community and change. So a couple things that I want to discuss before we end, talking to parents again about preparing our kids to go back to school. Parents, do not let anyone tell you that your kids aren't smart. Parents, do not let anyone tell you that your children can't read, can't write, can't do math. You should already know that. You have to take a little more time with your investment. That's your child. I want the parents to get used to, especially those grades, those lower level grades, 5 through 8. Parents, be vigilant on certain skill sets. Reading is number 1. Parents, make sure that your children can read at the proper grade level. Math. Your child should know what we call basic math or applied math. What is applied math? 2 plus 2 is 4. How many tires is on a basic car? 4. If I had 2 cars, how many tires would I have? 8. Your children should be able to solve those type of problems. Go back to reading real quick. Not only should they be able to read, but they should be able to comprehend what they read. So parents, I'm just giving you a heads up. I know we're early, but we're going to be prepared for September. We're not going to come in late. Our kids are going to come in on day 1, book bags, pencils, papers, ready to work. We have done our job. We're going to be prepared this year. Not to say that folks haven't been prepared. For all those people, those parents that believe in preparation, kudos, keep up the good work. But for those who have been a little tardy in the past, let's get off that tardy train and get on the right train to get our young folks ready and prepared. Again, being smart is the new currency. May not be able to shoot hoops, may not be able to hit a ball, but we will have our children ready to perform their citizens' duty out there in the general public when they become adults. We're going to prepare them to work. We're going to prepare them to help the tribe, and I always talk about that as the king of my tribe or the head of my tribe. I have a great tribe right now. I've invested a lot in them, socially, emotionally, academically, and they are paying dividends. I'm so proud of them. Thank you, kids, for making your father proud. So we're going to have all our children. Parents, we want to feel like that about all of our children. So with that being said, I'm going to say thank you for your listenership. I appreciate this time with you. And again, this is Men, Family, and Education Under Fire. And I'm your host, Dr. Horace Williams. And I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Stay tuned to the station. Stay with us, and we're going to bring you some more exciting topics to talk about in the future as we get close to the start of a new school year. Have a great afternoon, everybody.